Okay, it's Friday, September 9th, and this is an end of the day recap on the SPY. This is also an end of the week recap, so we'll kind of review what happened today. You can see a nice green bar to the upside, the third day in a row. We'll review the rest of the week a little bit. We'll kind of look at the weekly chart and see where that ended up and what that may mean going forward. And again, I want to just emphasize, when I say what that may mean going forward, I certainly can look at a chart, weekly chart here, monthly chart, daily chart. I could have my expectations based on each time frame, but don't confuse that with predictions. Like for example, I'm watching, CNBC here throughout the day or at different times of the day, and you see a lot of people come on there and they're predicting what's going to happen. There was a gentleman this morning who said we're going down to 3,000. This is I wouldn't even know the chart's all the way down here for sure. He just says a 20% drop in the market. Another person came on and also said we haven't had any capitulation yet. We, here with the lows on that big move from last year, we haven't seen the signs of capitulation, so we have to go lower. Then there is other people coming on saying we're going up to 4,800. If I, let me get this chart back to where it was, and 4,800's way up. I would have to somewhere up here, so this is definite, but we're going to have a melt up by the end of the year. And inflation is definitely going to be coming in a lot, not as strong as people suspect. So we're heading up to the high. So that's all predicting. I mean, that's all fun and who knows if you're going to be right or wrong. But in the way I and many other people look at things is we just look at price action. And even within price action, I'll say this and then I'll get to the recap. You can have your expectations. I mean, if you go back and watch my videos, as this month ending August, we were kind of coming to a red close. I could see the month near the end of the month was closing red, so I was very bearish into that. And then that looks like when you see this kind of bar, you expect follow through lower. So I was talking a lot how I think we should head to the bottom of this range. But I also discussed how on this one day, after we tried to go down a little bit earlier in the month, let me rescale this on this Wednesday today, that completely changed things in terms of the immediate direction of the market. And this one day here set up a whole chain reaction to be heading higher. And I kind of shot videos each day showing how that was up and this should have been up and this should have been up. And there were so many opportunities to take advantage of that trading, even though, again, my expectation was to head lower. But you certainly then follow price action and you now see that things have possibly changed. And it was very easy to see it, very clear, going above, taking a 2-up day on this day with a strong green bar, all of a sudden got to the midpoint of this week, which set up a chain reaction to head to the highs of the week. And then all of a sudden now on the monthly chart, if we just get a little more follow through, which is certainly kind of, I'll use the word expected again. I'm not going to predict it, but we're expected to, after a green weekly bar like this to head a little higher, all of a sudden you're to the midpoint of this month. And that you hold up there, then you're going to the, that you expect to get up to the highs of the month before the month ends. So this whole, notion that we were heading lower was fine in terms of, and there were a few days there and, a bunch of days where I was doing very well buying puts, but I was doing equally well, taking the long side of this market as price change. So anyway, I just thought I'd make a quick statement on expectations versus predictions, and more importantly, it's all price action which guides you to the high probability moves. Not, the predictions to me are just comical in some ways. But anyway, let's look at today again. If you just look at the opening range, I showed you the blue lines here. We talked about how we were looking to go long and take out the top of the range, which we got on bar number 2 here. So the first bar kind of didn't, head down or head up. It just was neutral, kind of paused here on bar 2, but then we headed up. There's your buy signal. You can see 1 push up, pause, 2 push up. Note the way we paused right at that red line. I discussed how that red line was a key area in terms of taking out this final high on this, once we had this green bar here, I was looking to possibly take out all these highs and showing how this is a gap area of resistance. So at the moment, that's where selling came in, or people, but it only paused here and then we continued higher and, we closed near the highs of the day. So at this point, you have a strong green outside bar to the upside, and that is not going to be easy, at least in the very short run, unless, you can have some crash over the weekend. I don't know what's going to happen. But in general, when you have this kind of strong green bar coming up, even though it's coming into a potential, what I call a gap area for resistance, and near this midway point of this monthly bar, if this is all going to hold in here and fail, let's say eventually you can look at this green bar that looks green right now. If we really fail, that can come all the way down mid-month, and you'd be back to then projecting to the lows at some point. But in terms of the way it has to happen going into next week, it's going to take a little time, I think, to really fail in some form, because you got to get below the midpoint of this bar to fail. And it looks like you'll probably start up a little bit first. Now, it's tricky in terms of target. This is, I guess I can get to this point that, once we were breaking out above here, you could see all these stops were in place to be taken out. That's why the high probability was to kind of continue to move up. Now, as we moved up, you got to take out this whole bar. There's no more stops in here, to take out. It's all the way up top here. That's a long way to go. So you almost don't predict or expect price to really reach this area so easily, because you got this big bar. That's something to keep in mind. On the other hand, this is a pretty strong rally, so it's something where people might think they missed the buy. If it comes down a little bit, you can see a little choppiness in here, and people might buy that pull back to head higher. And again, we'll see this day to day next week what happens, but I'm just trying to throw out some kind of expectations about what's developing. And it's not actually as clear, other than the fact you have a big green bar here and you do have 3 days up, so you have a little exhaustion risk in the short run. You do expect a little probe higher. The weekly chart, you do expect a little probe higher, but you're in this area where there's not many targets to be hit immediately. So we're going to have, I could see choppiness kind of coming in here. I'm not really convinced it's ready to go up so strongly. I'm not convinced, or, continue. And I'm not convinced right at the moment that we're ready to reverse and come down in this, what I call a zone of a gap here, which could be resistance. So, to come down, you're going to have to see, let's say this Monday, for example, you can get a little move up that fails, come to the midpoint of that bar. All of a sudden, that could be a down bar, and that might start it, but we'll watch for those things. I mean, these are the things you can't predict, but you're going to watch for. If we just head up or just pause a little bit, then you're going to have to get a 2 down bar. And then that might be Monday you pause, Tuesday you get a 2 down, and then you have to see if you start hitting these targets. And once you hit this one's a little further away too. So that's why I could see us here's a gap, in other words, between the low of that bar and the high of that bar. So here's a zone of partial support. So I could see bouncing around here and then deciding whether we're eventually going to break lower towards this red line, which is the turning the month red again, or if we just pause and then continue higher. And in general, on the weekly chart, I'll say this one final thought, and when you have a 3 bar up like this, the way you reverse that bar is you generally get either a 2 up bar, which would be all next week, and then a 2 down. That could reverse that whole look, and that would take 2 weeks to form. Or you can get an inside bar, a 3-1, a 1 bar is an inside bar, and then you can continue down, and that might kind of attack these lows. So in other words, it's, you can also get, of course, a 3 up and a 3 down, but that's rarer. So this could take a little time, is what I'm saying, and I'll get into that maybe more next week. So anyway, let's just finalize here. This was an easy day to, in terms of price action. Again, you had the highs and lows, you had the opening price action. 1 push up might stand, first move of the day, orderly pause, second push up on the day. And that was, classic directional day to the upside, close green. These other days of the week, if we look at them, Monday was the only day we kind of were looking down. It was a, good opportunity early, there was some short trades, but then that kind of paused. This day proved to be the key day here, where you kind of started green. You didn't really get the breakdown to the downside. You were above the midpoint of the prior day. And I remember this, that breakout up here all of a sudden set up the chain reaction. Because at that point, you have the intraday structure up. You take out the high of the, of the previous day. That's a 2 up day. Then you're targeting up. You see all these targets up here. That's why each day we were looking to go higher. And that's what developed. So let's end it on that note and saying, it's tricky now in terms of really having strong expectations. You have a little bit of exhaustion to the upside. You have a zone here with not many targets, but you're also moved up pretty strongly. And until we see some reversal, it's hard to really feel comfortable on the downside. So, in the very short run, you're just going to have to continue to play the upside until that fails in some way. We're going to be monitoring very strongly, the weekly chart. If we do go 2 up, is it enough to go to the midpoint of this prior month? We're right in that area. And finally, in the big picture, the way I used to, do analysis before I, got involved, I guess, with the strat. I would typically, when I have a down move here with several months, I'd want to see a green month go up and then follow through in order to be comfortable really in the big picture getting long. And that's why I'm showing here this box. To me, we're in just a big trading range overall. If I really analyze what's going on beyond the day-to-day action and week to week, this is just, we've come down a lot and now we're bouncing around in here. So in terms of the next big move in the market, to me, until we get above this area here, we're not really heading to 4,800. Until we get below, we're not heading down to 3,000, and who knows which way it's going to really break. Like I said, when you'd have a big move down here, I'd get a big green month and then the follow through. That was my sign to feel that the long-term trend was up. And I've made videos on this in the past. Once the long trend's up, or the big picture's up, I allow for like one monthly pullback, and I'm comfortable at that point still staying with the trend. Then when the weekly chart turns up, I get back on the long side. Obviously, once you get more than a 1 month pullback, then I consider things down until it turns up green again. So I knew, in terms of just standard stuff, I look at that we were kind of possibly heading down way back here. We've gone down ever since. No real monthly reversal. This was the first attempt. It's an inside bar, green, and it never really followed through. And now we're trying to get green again, but we're just in a big range here. So, it's very possible we head either up or down out of here, but it's going to take months to form. It's going to take time to form, and that's why we're kind of focused more short term. So just thought I'd point that out as well. That's why, even in terms of the trend at this point, it's down. In other words, it's still down from this high. I haven't seen anything turn up, but we are definitely for 4 months now just kind of going sort of sideways, if you really want to, look at it that way. And truthfully, if it doesn't really pop up, we could be, that could be another continuation lower. But I don't even want to get into stuff like that. Like in 2008, we did that. We kind of paused for a while, and then we eventually broke lower. And again, until the green bar hit on the monthly chart and then followed through a little bit, I wasn't comfortable getting long either. So we'll see what happens in the big picture there, but that's just a little bit off topic. So again, nice green day today. Very easy to trade at short run. Reached an area where you'd expect it to. So even in the morning, if you were just trading this, and you knew that was a target of a potential resistance, you could see that's why it's paused there. But you had actually, a whole hour and a half of good short-term trading to take advantage. And a lot of stocks had this type of pattern as well. So we'll see where it goes next week. I think it'll be a little more tricky to judge, but we'll be using, like always, the pre-market range and then the opening price action to kind of guide us where the day is starting, and then see how that fits into the various scenarios, in terms of the various time frames.